Hi there, this is Stacy, and this is the photo we're going to paint together for our landscape paint along. I'm going to link a good copy of this photo so that you can download the reference in the description. It's a photo I took in Sleeping Bear Dunes. It's a national lake shore in Michigan. It's just beautiful. So I'm going to talk about supplies. Let me zoom back out actually. Let's talk about the supplies we need. I have a rag here. I use this as a prop underneath of my paper. And then I'm going to use, today I'm using a pad of paper that's a 12.2 by 8.3. It's kind of a funky size. This is bow hung 100% cotton. And this is the Academy version. This is actually the last sheet I have in this particular block. You're going to need some tape. Needed eraser and pencil for doing our drawing, your watercolor paints, and 2 jars of water. I like to use one for rinsing off my brush and then one so that I have clear water to pull from. I like to have a sponge because that cuts down on my paper towel usage, and then a spritzer of water for hydrating our paints. We're going to need paint brushes, and then off to the side I have a value scale, a color wheel, and my paint swatches. I just like to keep those just in case I want to grab them. All right, so now I'm going to put the camera up in the tripod and we're going to get started. I'll do one last little shot. Here's the photo we're painting. I'm super excited about this one. Okay, something I'm going to do before I start. So I'm going to actually set my good paper to the side. And I'm going to take, this is just really crappy cellulose paper. I'm going to put this down first, and I just want to sketch out a value study. And I like to do this, I'm just doing a quick rectangle. That leaves me, I can make some notes on the sides if I want to. And I'm looking at I've got these, what I love about this particular landscape is the lines. It just has so many sort of, just weaves into each other. There's all these diagonal lines. There's a lot of really cool movement. That's what I love about these reference photos. So I'm going to kind of come up, this comes up. This is that first kind of grassy area. And then we have the sand dune, which kind of comes up from here, and it kind of swoops up, and it lands about here. So I like to kind of mark my starting and my ending so I know where I'm going. And it right about, this is maybe like this. Okay. So by doing this little quickie sketch first, it allows you to kind of get everything into place so that you really know what your composition is going to look like, and we can make some changes here. So I'm going to make first this line that's kind of imaginary that comes off, and it's about 1/3 of the way up the paper, which is a really nice proportion. All right, so this is going to be my general line, and then what you can see is that in the back off to this side you've got an opening in this water, like right here. And it kind of comes down and then comes, like the land is, it's not coming straight across. It's got like coves, right? And so we're going to kind of draw those in. And they're pretty even actually, which is fascinating to me. They're pretty even. And then we've got this big hill of trees. It's a hill, but and then there's one in the background as well. Okay. So this is what this looks like. This part is a bit more green. This part's a bit more blue. So it's almost like there's 2 layers. Like maybe this area here is kind of flat and this is more raised up. Okay, and then in the background you can see some land off in the distance, right? But this is pretty narrow. Need to get my pen. And this opening is about this wide. I've got it about here, and then we start again. And this has this long, it's coming towards us or forward, but it's kind of long. Whereas this is jutting in and out, this is not. This is a bit smoother. It's got one spot where it juts out here, you can see. And it's actually more here. Okay. All right, that's about it. This is not perfect by any means. I'm just doing, and remember this photo, and okay, here's the thing that's interesting. We've got this. This is like a little gray. You have to look really tight, but this is a little gray. And then where this juts out is like a separate hill. It's more green because it's closer together. So you're seeing these dunes kind of come down into this body of water. I feel like this is too far out. So again, if I went right to my paper, I would be erasing on my paper, but now I can just erase on this, which doesn't really matter, right? Because we're just doing this little study. Okay, and then there's this. So this is this like kind of lakey thing. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Anyway, this is a lake, and you can see that this is the front. This is the far shore, and this is the front shore. And so it's pretty here. It's pretty straight across, and it kind of tucks up a little bit here, right? And I can see that maybe this too needs to come down a bit, but I don't know, but not too much. All right, okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And I think, like I said, what I love about this photo in general is that you've got all of these different things kind of converging and moving. There's a lot of movement to it, and I think that's really cool. Now we've got a lot of trees. We've got 2 tree lines here, and I think we've got one that we've got like this foliage that goes here, along here, and it kind of comes up here. This is foliage. You see this tree line here, and they kind of, you can see the spacing between the trees, and some of them are closer together. So this is far off because this is right on this is on that shore, which is, there we go. And then we have another set of trees that kind of connects with these, but they're a little closer. There's like a field, or there's space between these trees and these trees that come in. It's like almost like another row of trees, and they start like this and kind of come like this. All right, and so I'm just kind of swooping, and they're kind of connecting. So it's almost like very woodsy over here, but here we've got some space. These are smaller, kind of like over here. They're a little smaller, right? And then there's a couple of bigger guys right here. And then it gets a little smaller. Like you've got some shadowing that happens. And there's some bigger spots here. Okay, so this is roughly what we have. Now what I want to do is, and there's a lot of pencil on here, that's okay. I've got a lot of like, this is like sandy right here. It kind of comes like this. I'm gonna want to put that in there. It's lightweight, and there's a few grassy pieces. And we might, looking at it, I might put a little bit more space between these things and include a little bit less of this. I'm not sure yet, I haven't decided. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab my brush. I'm gonna make this really just quick and easy. So I'm gonna grab a slightly larger brush. This is my size 6. It is a Da Vinci Maestro Series 35, which is a very large size 6. I would say that actually, if you're looking at your brushes and you have more standard sizing, this is probably about a size 8. Now I'm gonna get it wet, and I'm just going to pick any muddy color on my palette. Here we go. I want it to be kind of grayed. So I'm going to use this right here. Do I want to do that? No. Okay, changing my mind. Sometimes I change my mind. Let's just use Payne's Gray. I'm going to mix Payne's Gray into this, because what we're going to do here is we're only using this one color. All we're trying to do is establish what are the lightest parts of the painting, what's the mid value, and what are the darkest parts. And so I'm going to leave no paint on the lightest parts, and that's the sky, the lake, and the sand. My mid values, which is where I'm going to start right now, are off in this distance right here, and then all of this in between the trees. And I'm going to paint over the trees, right? And then the other thing that's mid value is what's up front here. And this is just a super quick sketch. And then we get kind of light again here. So I'm going to just kind of lighten this out. I'm doing this value study is what helps me know how I'm going to, if I've got it right. Like in my head, I think I know what it is, but this lets me know, do I have it right or not? I am going to take just a bit of water just to lighten this up. There's a bit of color right here and a bit of color right here. And it kind of swoops up, and these are the grasses, but it's like an intermediate, like it's not all white, right? Whereas this lake is almost all white. The lake has a little more value than the sand does. So I'm going to take like the lightest bit of my, and I'm going to just kind of brush that in, because it's got a little bit of color. And same thing for the sky. Like the sky has a little bit of color, especially over in here. There's a little bit of color here, and then it kind of, and I'm going to use some clear water to pull that out. Okay, now what we're going to do is go in with more, like a deeper Payne's gray. And this is, again, this is not a finished piece by any means. All we're doing is studying the color values, or not even the color, I should say just the values. Like and if you're struggling to see it, one of the things you can do is make your paper or your painting, your reference photo, black and white. That helps you see like where are the darkest parts. Okay, so this is more mid-value, is through here, right? And this is mid-value, but it starts to get darker. So I'm going to pull in a little bit of extra darkness. It starts to get dark right in here, right? This is a little bit darker right here than the stuff that's off in the background. And then same thing here. This is a little darker here. So I'm just going to give it a little extra darkness. And I am bleeding up into that water. This is pretty dark. I'm not going to do that in the real painting. And then this is kind of dark because we've got this kind of woods area, right? These trees have a lot of value to them. And these have this has quite a bit too. I need to make those maybe a little bigger. So now I'm going to get a deeper, I've dipped into my Payne's gray and I'm going darker because this is really dark. Like now I'm looking at what is the darkest part of this picture. And this is really dark, right in here is dark. These like trees that go off in the distance. And I would say that this area is like kind of like a second, and over here is kind of that second really dark value. And there's like a little bit of dark right there. Okay, and then we do have some trees that are not quite as dark as the ones that are here, but they're still on the darker side right here, right? So we're gonna go like that. And I would say that overall, this part is underneath of here is a little darker because it's got this grass, but it's kind of in the shadows a bit, you know, like this isn't quite as light. Okay, there we go. Now what I can see is that I developed a nice amount of value. I have these lighter parts. This is super highlighted. I know that this is going to be my lightest part of my picture and that this is going to be the second lightest part of my picture. This is important to understand before you start. And that these are kind of my mid-tones. These areas all like outside of this hill. This is mid, but mid to light, right? And then I've got some darker values back here in the hills. And then we've got some darker values in these trees. That's what's going to give us some, and I can go back in and add a little bit here because this is going to be a bit darker too, are these trees. Okay, so this little tiny sketch, I kind of learned a lot about this painting by doing this. And it took us maybe 15 minutes. This 15 minutes is definitely worth it because now I have something that I can add to my reference photo. I'm going to actually set it near my reference photo and I can look at both things when I'm determining where I'm going to build more value into my picture and where I really want to leave things alone. Okay, so now that we've done that, I also have determined that I'm going to change a bit of the lines. You know, like I think I'm going to change this a bit. I'm going to bring it down a little so we have a little more. I need to bring all of this down a little so there's a little more space here. And I think when I look at the reference photo, there is a little more space here. So this is just super helpful. And we have cut off some of the sky because I really want to kind of keep the rule of thirds, which means that my horizon is, if I'm focusing on the land, then my horizon is going to sit at the top third of my sky is at the top third of my page. Now, of course, this is not always a rule, but if I want to focus on my sky, I'm going to let my horizon sit at the bottom third of my page, or maybe a little above. I like those kind of guidelines. Now, you can break them. Guidelines are meant to be broken when it's a good idea to break them. Okay, let's sketch this out. And I'm going to think about that top third of my paper, and I'm looking at my value sketch almost as much as I'm looking at my reference photo. Right, so this is kind of my guideline, and I know that that little break in land is going to be kind of right here. So I'm just giving myself a little, like, some markers, right? And then this is where my sand hill is going to come. It's going to come down like this, and we're going to swoop this. We're going to swoop to here a little bit with our kind of grassy field-ish area, right? And it's going to kind of come up, but we're not going to have quite as much as we did in our initial value sketch. Okay, I am going to bring my sand. It comes down, it swoops. It kind of flattens out a bit, and then it really, yeah, see, I might need to bring this up a little because otherwise it's going to look a little awkward. Okay. Making changes on the fly. I always like to paint a sketch first. I know that there are people. Now where this, I'm looking at, this is kind of, I'm looking at my markers. My paper is a little bit different than the photo. This happens a lot where like you have a reference photo and your paper, like your original picture is maybe taken at a different ratio. And so you just got to kind of work with it, right? You just kind of fill in and stretch it out or squish it up to make it fit. All right. Yeah, see, this is too high. But I drew a little darkly, so. All right, there we go. There. Okay, I'm happier with that. That gives me a little more room for these trees. Okay, so now off in the distance, I'm going to start with this like little bit of land. It kind of pops down below the horizon line a bit, and then it's just going to swoop up above the horizon line here. And I'm going to take the first one, and then there's like a little, there's a secondary kind of hill back there. And then here, remember, it kind of divides up. We've got this one's a little longer. And then we come like this. And then we come like this. Okay, and it kind of comes like that. All right, close enough. All right, and you can see this kind of dips out a little bit, which is really cool. And then you've got your water in the background. Now we have this bit of land that comes here. And remember, this one's really long and it kind of dies in. I think this hill needs to come up a little more. Okay. And it kind of dies into here. And it's about, and this is like that separate hill that is not as tall. Actually, let's bring this up higher. Okay, and now we've got this side, which goes above the horizon line, and this is that longer bit. Oh gosh, it's really long. Okay, but it is. Okay, let's go like, maybe we'll leave this space a little wider. Again, we're stretching it out a little bit. My paper is a different ratio than the original photo, so I just need to take that into account. Okay, oh, I like that. That's really pretty. All right, perfect. The next thing is that back here, we have another, you can see off in the distance, more dunes, right? But they're kind of lower here, and they die into this. This needs to be a little higher. And I've got it a little too rough, but that's okay. Okay, oh, I like that. Oh, that's really pretty. All right, and we're gonna leave this kind of white back there, which is gonna be hard. Well, it's gonna be a light blue. But I think it's gonna be worth it because it's gonna be really interesting. I really love how these lines come together. That's what's so great about this reference photo. Okay. If you've never been to this, I think it's called National Lakeshore. It's so, so pretty. I gotta pull up some, I've got a little leftover pencil from there. Okay, so now let's develop this middle ground section. And so this is kind of narrow here. The lake is kind of going off in the distance, right? And this goes pretty straight across. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna kind of, and it kind of pushes into this hill. So we're just gonna go straight across there. But then what happens is, and you have those bits of trees that happen back here. We'll get those in there later. This area is all kind of wooded. So like this is all foliage. And there's kind of, you can see these rows of trees that are darker in this back, but then you've got these rows of trees. We're gonna just kind of fill this in with green. And then we're going to do we're going to kind of outline some darker trees in the back here. And we're gonna eliminate a lot of details. All we really want to do is let the viewer know that this is wooded. That's it. And we want them to see that this lake is lined with trees, right? And we've got this really nice tree line and it comes along. And I'm just kind of looking, there's like spots where it comes up and then and it kind of, well, maybe about here it starts to die off, right? And then we've just got a few little like shrubby things. All right, there we go. Oh, I'm really happy with that. And then there's like this, what happens with these trees is that they kind of swoop in here. There's like a hill here that you can kind of see, because this land is laying in all of these different layers. And so there's some dark trees here. And then there's like a really kind of bigger one right here. Where we might even, you can't see a stem in the, but we might include one anyway. And then we've got some kind of scrubby looking stuff, and let's just add, we're gonna add some trees here that maybe aren't so much part of this reference photo, but that I think just will look nice. Because this is kind of establishing more middle ground. Right, and then we're going into our wooded area. And now we've got trees that are sitting behind this hill. We may eliminate that. We may not put any, like maybe we'll do a little bit here. We've got like some shrubbery here. I kind of like that, maybe right here. But I don't think we're gonna do the ones that are sitting right behind here because I don't think they add anything to the picture. And I really want to accentuate all these layers. So I want to eliminate things that aren't accentuating that. And this tree here kind of takes away from those. Yeah, so I think that's what we're gonna do. Let me swoop that, okay. All right, I think we're pretty good here. We're gonna do a lot of dry brushing technique on this too, I think. All right, let's start getting some color in. I am gonna leave a lot of my lines. I'm gonna lighten up some of them, but I'm gonna leave quite a few because I'm okay if a bit of my pencil shows through on a landscape. You know, the drawing part is part of the process of making this all come together. And so I don't mind if you see my drawing. I do want to make sure that inside of the sand dune though is pretty cleaned up because it's a really light value. And you can see right here you have this spot. I think this goes more like this. Okay, there we go. Oh, I'm glad we did that because this is green. But there's a spot right here where you can see the sand. I'm going to change this line a little bit. I'm just being really fussy, but it's because I really want these lines to be beautiful. We're going to kind of come up and like that. There. Oh, I like that. Okay. Because the sand is kind of drifts, you know? And then this is coming here. So right in this space, we've got two light values that are going to touch. But the lake is a little bit darker value than the sand. And the sand is warmer, so we're going to use our colors that way. Okay, so for this first layer, all I'm going to do is put down some really basic colors. These are going to be like the softest undertones for everything. And I think we're going to use a combination of quinacridone rose. We're going to use some raw sienna. Here, let me pull this out. So for this first wash, we're going to use quinacridone rose. We're going to use raw sienna. And I think I'm probably going to use some cobalt blue. And that's just going to be the base and maybe a really bit soft bit of sap green. Probably that, but I don't know. I might just leave, yeah, sap green. Okay, that's what we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to get my bigger brush, my size 14 silver black velvet. These brushes are okay. I know there are people who love them. I cannot wait to be able to afford, right now I just can't because they're so expensive. I think it's like, I don't know, $250 or $280, something like that. I love, love, love these Da Vinci Maestro brushes. So my goal is to purchase one of these, and like a size 10 would be amazing. I'd take even an 8. This is 6, but no, really a 10. A 10 or a 12. If I could do a 12, that would be fantastic. And I would trade it out for this brush. I'm using this one because this costs about $40, so a tremendous price difference. But I lose hairs on this sometimes. So just wanted to mention that because I'm talking about my supplies sometimes, and you know, it's just, it does the job, but it is not my favorite brush. Okay, let's get piles of, for this first layer, I think I want the colors to be a little cleaner. So I'm gonna go ahead and spritz down my, I should spritz my paints down too. Ooh, I got the edge of my paper. Oops, 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 that's okay. And then I'm gonna grab my paper towels. I use a little IKEA cart and it sits right to the left of me and it has the rest of my supplies. And one of the reasons I like that IKEA cart, that's where I put everything away too. I do have room in my art room to put stuff on the shelves, but I like the IKEA cart because then sometimes I want to paint in the kitchen where my husband is sitting on his computer, or I have a little spot I can set up in the family room and hang out with my daughter so that I can paint and not be sequestered away. It's nice to have an art room to have all your stuff in. I really love that, and it is a great luxury. We just converted our formal living room is all. But I'm just talking while I'm cleaning this palette. Anyway, I do love that little cart. It's like a little IKEA cart. Ooh, I've got paint on my hands. Now I'm going to clean those off. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm just going to use my little spray bottle here and then a paper towel. I don't want to accidentally get fingerprints on my palette. So, okay. That was a lot of like hubbub. My dad would call that hubbub. All right, let's get my colors out here. And I'm just going to make 3 piles here so that I can grab from them easily. I've got my Quin Rose here, which is a little muddied up because I was using it for a painting I made earlier today. Okay, and then let's see. What did we say? We're going to use some of the Raw Sienna. Definitely. This is always hard to pull out of my palette. I love this color. It's a Rembrandt color, but I'm going to try other similar versions that maybe come out of the palette a little more easily. So I might try Daniel Smith's Raw Sienna. Some of my Rembrandt colors I absolutely adore, and some of them, like I have Rembrandt paints and they're nice, but I like my Daniel Smith paints more, I think. And not for every color. For some colors I like my Rembrandt. Like my Permanent Blue Violet is, I love, love, love from Rembrandt, and I love my yellows from Rembrandt. I haven't tried the Daniel Smith yellow other than Quin Gold, which I do like. But okay, and then the last color we talked about using was a little bit of sap green. I think I might have to refill that in order to get through this painting. We'll see. Okay, there we go. I'm going to make another pile right up here because I'm starting to blend there. For my sky, I want it to be a really pure blue. Okay, actually, I want the sky to have, we might use a little bit, I'm just going to put it over here, a little bit of this gray, because our skies have some clouds. We're not going to make our sky quite as busy, but there is a little bit of gray, and I might even pull a little pink in. We'll decide. Okay, there we go. We can pull some of these different things in. All right, let's start, and we're going to work top to bottom. So I'm going to start with my Cobalt Blue. And we're just going to brush this in. Now, here's the thing that I'm looking at. The clouds make this really nice. They kind of make this line from here to here in the reference photo, and we're going to accentuate that. And so I'm going to start back here behind, and I'm going to take this color down to my edge, right? To all of this. All of this kind of these hills that are in the background. It just helps them to push back more into the horizon. And now, oops, let's get that like gray pink color, and that kind of comes up this way. Now I'm going to get just plain water, and I'm just going to soften that up. We're just kind of moving things, and this kind of comes this way. You see how it all just kind of pulls into this one side? I really like that. Now I'm going to put a tiny bit of pink in here, just right up here, because I can see that there's just like a hint of like this purpley color. And then let's go into our Cobalt Blue. I'm going to make it a little stronger. I'm going to make sure, actually I need to move it up. There's a little green that's flooding in here. It's because it's all mixing. I don't want green in my sky. And then this is a little bit harder line, so I'm just going to do that here, and it kind of extends here and maybe at the bottom of here. Now let's get some water and it. Okay, and I'm just brushing some water in here to make sure that my edges stay really nice and soft. I might bit a little bit of my, there's a little tiny bit of Payne's gray mixing in with this little bit of purple over here, and I'm gonna just like dot that along here just to give it a little more texture. And then I'm gonna get a bit more of my blue into there, and there's like this spot right here that's kind of cool. And now this is looking a little dark, but remember that it is all going to dry lighter. And I'm going to come all the way. I am working on a paper block that is not taped down. A lot of times I tape my paper block, but I decided not to today. I'm going to go all the way to the edge because this is the last piece of paper on this block. And then I'm going to get just a bit more pink in here. I just want a little more pink right up in here. And I'm going to dip that pink down to here. Actually, let's just dip it in. Okay, that's a lot of pink. That's okay. That's going to be really pretty and interesting. Okay, and that's what we're, you know, like we're taking a picture and we're just making it, we're giving it some expression, we're adding interest, and we're taking the things I think are cool. I'm dipping in, and I've got just a little bit of gray, a little bit of Payne's gray, and that last with some cobalt blue, and I'm just kind of developing this a little bit more, because again, it's going to lighten. Right, and so, all right, I think I'm going to leave it alone. I like it. It's a softer over here, which I think is perfect. And again, I really love how this sky and these clouds are kind of accentuating this. Now, what you could do, if you've gotten a little dark in some places, is you can put some of those cloud shapes back in just with, and I like some edges hard and some edges soft, with your paper towel. Okay, do you see how we have these swooping lines this way, and then we've got the land, and then we're swooping this way and swooping this way? There's just so much movement in this particular composition. Okay, oh wait, I just caught sight of something in my reference photo. I'm gonna add a little bit of my Payne's gray. Ooh, that's a little too much. I'm gonna take a little bit of that out, and my cobalt blue to get this color, a little more cobalt blue. Take a little out. Okay. Got that pretty watered down. There's like a little line of clouds that kind of come like this, and they just dot across the sky, and I really like those. I want to include that. And some parts are a little darker, so we're going to make a few of those parts a little darker, and we're just going to let that touch the bottom of here where we already have this, and it kind of flows in. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, super happy I did that. Sometimes you do something like that and you're like, ooh, wish I hadn't done that. And sometimes you do something like that and you're like, ooh, really glad I did that. Okay, and then the other thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to work, there's a little bit right here. Ooh, that was really dark. Okay, that's okay. I'm just going to have some darkness here. Okay, a little darker than I planned. But, again, I can always come back in with my paper towel and just get a little bit of that up. There we go. It gets a little too dark. And then I'm going to swoop that back in a little bit. Okay, I guess it's just going to be dark. Okay. And it kind of is. So you know what? I'm going to let that be. Okay, I'm going to stop messing with this, because if I keep going, I'm going to lose. I've got like some really cool movement. I've got some beautiful color. I've got some translucency happening. Some of the white of the paper is popping through. And if I keep screwing with it, I'm not done yet. Okay, I say that, but then I'm going to go back in. So do you see how this also kind of comes in? It just creates these layers, and I think that's what's so cool. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go up into here. There's just some layers in here too. I'm just dancing my brush around, and I'm kind of pulling it back. Oop, I need a little more water. I'm pulling it back this way. Okay, now I think I'm done. I make sound effects. I don't know, does anybody else do that when you're painting? It's just kind of fun to like make a few sound effects. Anyway, all right, leaving that alone. It was a little more involved than I planned on getting with it, but sometimes that's what happens. Okay, so now let's move our blue again. let's use this like really, okay, so do you see how the water's almost pinky gray in some spots? We're going to, I don't know, I think this is all on screen. I better check. Hang on guys, sorry. Yeah, we're good. I do need to move this over just a touch. Okay, I just want to make sure you can see the mixing. Okay, so this water on this side of it is a little more pink and this side gets a little more blue. So I'm pulling from this pink, but I've pulled that kind of gray from the sky over. So I'm kind of connecting these wells and I'm going to use that here. And I'm going to just come in like this. And I'm going to connect that up with the shore. And then I'm going to transition into a bit more blue. See how we get a little bit more blue here? Now this I probably won't touch again. A lot of things we're going to build more color into. I am going down to the bottom of the shoreline, including, and then this gets a little more blue-green. So where my blue and my green are mixing together, I've got this kind of lovely turquoisey color. I'm going to allow that to come together for this part. And it is a little bit darker here. But it's kind of like a blue-green that's really pretty. And again, I'm going to come right down to my trees. Okay, this to me is always the prettiest stage of a painting. I love all these light washes. And then we have to start adding in midtones. And then I always feel like that's the ugliest stage of a painting. I always have to work past it. I don't know about you guys, but that's how I feel. Okay, now I'm going to just get the base for where our green is, and I'm mixing in like my blue and my green together, and that's going to come along here, right? And we're just going to come in. I might want a little more blue with that, a little more blue undertone. So I'm going to add a little more blue into my sap green, and ooh, that was pretty strong. That's okay. Okay, let's just move that. We're going to keep that here. And let's move that along. I'm keeping this a hard edge where my sand is because it is a hard edge. We're moving naturally. It's kind of moving a little more green as we get closer, and I kind of like that. I do want to add a little bit of this beautiful because we've got some of that back there. This is green grass, right? But it's got a bit of warmth to it. We're going to bring it all the way down here. Okay. And this helps to set these layers too, because we've got these like layers. We want to accentuate that. There's like a weird little inlet of water. We're not doing that. We're going to leave that. I think that's going to not add to the picture. I think it's going to take away from it. So if you're noticing that in the reference photo and you're like, hey, where'd that little pondy thing go? We're not doing it. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of take this mix between the green and I'm making a big puddle here that's really light. And that's what's going to come here. But what I am going to do in some parts is swoop in maybe, now let's see, I don't know. All right, we're just going to color this in with this greeny mix, right? And I'm going to use a bit more green over here. This is going to stay super light because we're going to develop this later. Again, this is just our initial wash, just to kind of block out where things are and to set the tone of the painting. And I'm going to pull in a little bit of purple. So I'm going to take my quinacridone pink or quinacridone rose in with my blue. And see how this is like right where this is? It's just got like some, there's like some wildflowers. And so I'm going to just like dip that in. Okay, and then let's get out more of our really warm raw sienna here, and let's go ahead and hit our sand. It's also got some pinks, so we're going to let those pinks brush in, and this is going to be so light, and it's got a little bit of yellows, but that's going to be handled by this raw sienna, right? And we can always build more color up later. Okay, so it's a little more, let's see, I'm just going to kind of go like this. I'm just thinking about, I'm watching my reference photo. I'm going to let these blend together. And we're just going to, like, some of this is just going to be really light. I'm going to mix in a little bit more pink up in here. There's a little bit of pink here. It comes down. I've got a lot of water on here, but that's okay. And this is going to be a little more of the yellowy color. this beautiful raw sienna. Ooh, sorry. I know sometimes I get really quiet when I'm concentrating. I try not to. Okay, and now here's what's tricky. We're going to have to mix in, I'm going to use some raw sienna and some of my sap green, and I'm just going to kind of mix in right here, right, while this is wet. And I'm going to pull it up like this, and we've got this spot here where we've got a lot of like grassy growth. I don't know that we're going to do the individual grass, or we might just kind of leave this. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And we've got like this, kind of comes up here. Again, let's mix in a little bit more of this green, our sap green, with our raw sienna to make this kind of really off yellowy green. And that's just going to kind of come in here a little bit. Like this may be all we do for that green, because we're not trying to paint every individual grass blade, right? And so let's put a little more in here. And I don't want it to overtake. So I'm doing this in a much softer way, and this almost has like a kind of cool, like it kind of comes around in a circular way, right? And then up here, and up here, and up here. And then this is kind of circular right here. And then we're kind of waving here. And I'm going to get a little bit more, a little stronger version of my raw sienna that I'm mixing in here. And I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit more. All right. I think that's all I want to do. Actually, I almost want to tone this down a bit. We're just going to hit that with, there. Now, this is going to naturally, see how this naturally comes in here? It's not as straight a line. It's like here, it's more, you're seeing the layers a bit more, but up here, this is where the top of this dune in this grassy area with the flowers kind of blends in with the sandy area. So I'm going to do that by mixing together a stronger version. Not that strong. That's too strong. Okay, there we go. And we're just going to kind of take it like this. And now I'm going to pull this color across. And I'm letting it kind of skip and dry brush across. And it's going to kind of sink in here. I've got some white spaces here. I'm going to leave those because I think they're interesting. And then let's get a little deeper right here where this line is, right? And we're just going to kind of let it pull together like that. All right. I think I'm going to leave that. I really like the way that looks, and I don't want to wreck it. I think we're going to pull this in just a little bit. Okay, I got to stop touching. I'm really bad about that. I have something, I'm like, oh, I really like the way that looks, and then I keep messing with it, and then I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. So I'm trying really hard not to. I'm trying really hard to let things go a little faster. I am going to come in here and just make kind of and this is not really part of the photo, I'm just, it kind of is. Like there's kind of like this wave here, right? I've just got these layers. Okay, I'm gonna leave that be. We're gonna come in here a little bit lightly. I'm just kind of dry brushing on top. And some of these light areas we're gonna leave alone. We're not gonna go back and touch again. Some of them we will, but some of them we're just gonna be done. I think we're going to build up behind this a lot, and I've got some white highlights. The sand is not all the way white, but I like how that looks, and I'm going to leave them. So we're going to let that be. And I might develop, these. The thing about the sand is that there's like some darker areas that are pink. So I might go in with this pink, and I'm letting it kind of mix in with everything. And there's like a little bit of a, like this is a bit of a shadow, right here. And there's a bit of a shadow here. So I'm going to do that, and so now I'm going to soften the edges up, right, because it is soft in here. Let's let these spaces come together. There we go. And then we've got another spot where it's kind of shadowed right here. Because this is an overcast day, so the light isn't so directional. And then it's a little shadowed here, but I don't want to mess that up. So I'm going to add just a little bit of darkness here, but not too much. And I'm going to do the same thing here. We're going to add a little bit of darkness here. I'm going to add a teeny bit more sap green, and I'm just going to tip in. I'm being really careful not to create water balloons. I don't have a lot of water on my brush at all for this. I'm just going to kind of streak this up a little. Okay. I almost have too much going on there. I'm going to take a little bit out with my paper towel. What is that? I think that fell out of my brush. There we go. Okay. Or maybe out of the paper towel. I don't know. All right. I'm going to leave this be. I have a lot of really interesting color going on here. Is it an exact depiction of what's happening on the essay undo? Not at all. And we might go back in and add a little bit of like, actually I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to add just a little bit of kind of dry brushing here because I like this shape. So I'm going to just add that here, and I'm going to come down here and do the same thing here. So that we're kind of connecting. So that's the thing to think about. There's something called connecting shapes. And so we're connecting, you're thinking of like the bigger overall shape, not the individual shapes. And so this is kind of a connecting shape like that. It kind of pushes this way. All right. We're gonna leave that. I guess I'm gonna do a teeny bit of dry brushing here. I don't like how there's too much. There we go. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm not touching it. Now, what we're gonna do is work up in here a bit. The paper is mostly dry, which is good because this is all kind of hard lined. There's not anything that's, I feel like there's maybe a tiny bit of moisture in my paper, but not enough to make it a difference. I'm going to switch over to my smaller brush. This is my size 6, but it is a large size 6, so for you, that might be a size 8. And I'm going to pull out my beautiful blue, and I'm going to mix it up in here. I have a lot of sap green in here already. So I'm going to just mix it up in here, and now I want to gray this out a bit, and so I'm going to use a little bit of my Payne's gray just to add a tiny bit of, yeah, there we go. And this is what's going in the back here. This is pretty dark value, and what we're going to do is let's start with the lightest, which is like a really soft gray. Actually, ooh, that was too much water here. That's okay. Okay, we're going to use that. I'm going to get a little more blue. Okay, and so right here behind, there's like this little soft bit of land that comes right here. So we're going to put that there. And then we're going to work on, I'm going to need to let that, no, it's okay if it floods, actually. Okay, so now I'm going to add a slightly darker version. It's got a bit more green to it. I'm going to add a bit more blue, actually. Blue-green, okay. And we're going to we're putting in our mid values right now, and so we are definitely going to go back at some point and deepen this up even more. But for right now, I'm just trying to give the edge of this shore, right? And oh, remember that this was lighter here. So let me pull in a bit more sap green for this part. Over here. It was like a little bit farther. It's a little, like this one right here is a little bit closer. And so there's more color to it. That was a lot of color. That's okay. Because we're going to go in and darken that all up anyway. All right. And so the same thing over here. This one is a bit lighter, so I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to go to this more blue, which is going to be here. Oops. Let's be a little neater about that. And this is just getting our mid values in. These are actually going to be much darker, but I'm laying this down. I kind of like to block my stuff out. I don't want to go in with my deepest values. I'm just not ready for that. Okay, so now what you'll notice is that this part here is a bit warmer. I'm going to leave it alone because I don't know how much color we're going to put in these two areas. This is not the highlight, and I kind of like what I have happening, but I am going to come in. There's like a, kind of like a, right here, it's a little darker here. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to warm it up by adding a bit more green into here, but also a bit more Payne's gray. So it's like a gray green color. What else works really well? I almost want to add a teeny bit of pink. Oh yeah, that's perfect. That pink desaturates it. If you look at the color wheel, opposite of green is red. So if you add any red tones to green, you're going to desaturate them. So that's why when we add pink to that green, it just desaturates it. It means it doesn't have, it's not as vivid any longer, which we like. Okay, so I'm gonna tip that in, and now we're just, I'm using my, so my brush goes to a really fine point, or it can spread out a little. So right now I'm letting it spread out a little, and I'm tipping it up like this to kind of arch in to where I want these trees to be. And I'm just following the pencil line that I made earlier, which makes this really easy. I'm not even looking at my reference photo. I'm just looking at, these guys are off in the distance. I'm trying to be kind of loose about it. And then we have these trees here. I'm going to make sure this is kind of a hard line, and I'm going to try not to go where we have added fresh paint because I don't want to have these bleed together. If I get a little bit of bleeding, that's okay. I'm not going to stress about it. Usually just makes the picture a little more interesting. It's one of the properties that make watercolors so unique over other mediums. And so, okay, and now we've got our front line of trees. I'm going to use the same color. I just need to load up my brush because I'm starting to run out of pigment on there. And I'm going to come along here. Now these ones are a little bit more defined because they're not as far away. I'm going to do the tops here, and then I'm going to go back in and pull some stems in. Okay, and we're just trying to get that basic shape. Okay, I'm going to kind of come in like that, and then I'm going to, okay, there's kind of a line here, and so we're just going to kind of do that. But I'm not quite as strong as what's in the original picture. I don't want it to be quite as strong. Okay, and then we've got some like, I don't have a lot of paint left in my bristles, and so this is a little more dry brushy, but I like that. And now I'm going to just kind of like, I just want to come down here and just sort of accentuate that this is a line. All right. Now we've got this greenery that's happening here. For this greenery, I'm going to add a touch more of my, well, or quite a bit more. Oops. Let's add a bit more of my Payne's gray in. Now this is going to be warmer because I'm not going to add as much blue to it. And so that's going to be for this foliage that I have off here. And this is warmer, right? You can see in the picture it is because it's closer up. And it's not always the rule, but for this, I think painting, that just kind of worked out that way. And there's some other like greenery here. I'm going to kind of, I think I'm going to pull in a bit of, this is a last minute decision. I'm going to pull in a bit of my raw sienna, and I'm going to just kind of pull that in here. I'm going to just make this a bit more vivid. But I'm going to leave a line right here. And I might, when I talked about it, I wasn't sure what I was going to do here. I might kind of like, we're going to dry brush some stuff in. Okay, yeah, I'm going to just give this a little more color, a little more green. But it's really light. We're keeping it light. And you see how I'm kind of dry brushing it in? There we go. We're going to connect that with the trees that are here. And then I think I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add just a little bit of green. I'm going to kind of dry brush in here. Now we just, ooh, that was too much. Okay, so too much green, too much green, too much green. Actually, I like that though. So that tells me that if I add just a teeny bit of blue in, ooh, too much blue. Okay, and now I'm gonna get I've got water in my brush, not a ton of water. I'm gonna dip in some paint, and I'm just gonna kind of come back in here to give it a little bit of blue-greenness around the trees, right? Because I feel like it's a little disconnecty. Maybe a little more green. We'll let this new color, this color that we're mixing in for this, like kind of where the grass is, I'm gonna let it kind of dip up into the trees, and then I'm gonna dip it down a little. And I'm letting it stay really textury. I'm gonna dip in here a little bit. And just kind of make sure that I'm just kind of bridging everything so that these layers appear. There we go. I don't want to start getting super, like I want separation, but I don't want it to look disjointed. Does that make sense? And then this needs to be much darker. Okay, so now I think though, before I start adding those darker values, I like to let it sit and dry and step back and look at it. So we had our lightest washes and we've taken care of our mids. Now we're going to go in and throw in those really deep values that are going to make this all come together and pop. I think we've got some really interesting things going on with this, and I'm super happy with it. I really love the way that the sky turned out. I just love, love, love all of this movement and these lines coming in and out. We've got some nice texture. So I'm pretty happy with this. We're going to let it dry. I'm going to put the video on pause, and let's come back in maybe like 30 minutes or so, so that we have a nice dry paper that we're going to work with. We're going to do some harder edges. And there's some fuzziness back here. We're going to leave that out. Like we're choosing to leave a lot of things out that are in the reference photo because we don't want to take away from the most important parts, which are we've got this warmth that goes back to these cooler colors, which I think is really fun. And then we've got all of these layers. That's the thing we're worried about, and that's what we want to show. All right, I'm going to put us on pause, and we'll come back. I'll see you back in like 30 minutes. All right, my paper's pretty dry, and now we're going to go in and add those darkest values. Now I'm going to remind myself that I don't need anything here or here. My darkest values just fall along this space and in these trees, so that's all we're going to do. I'm going to be really careful not to overwork this because I'm really happy right now. I have some really cool things going on with color. I've got, everything is very well established. This is super loose. We've left a lot of details out. We didn't add any of those little wildflowers. We may go back in and add a few grasses, but I might not because I don't want to distract from what's happening here. And if I start working this, they've got like some really pretty little purple wildflowers. We could work those in here, but I'm worried that if I do that, I'm going to lose focus. And right now my focus is right here, and I've got a lot of, like, we've got some interesting color, we've got some texture, it's very warm here, and then we've got this background that's receding that's really nice and cool, and then we've got this kind of middle area here, and this is where we're going to develop a lot of texture in those trees because we're going to add some value here. And so I think if I've got texture in the clouds and texture in the trees, if I add texture down here, I'm just not sure that it works. So I want to be careful not to add too much, and I think that can be really hard to do. It's like you just want to go in and you're looking at this photo and you're like, oh, but I should paint all these details, and we shouldn't. There's a lot of things that we really need to leave off. So, and I like how this looks, and so that's why I think, like, while I was letting it dry, I was looking at it, thinking about it, but I think I'm going to leave it alone. I don't think I'm going to add anything in. Okay, so I have moved to my size 5 brush, and this is a pointed round, so it gets to be like really nice and pointy at the end, so I can work some details in. And what we're going to do right now, actually, am I going to use, yeah, I'm going to use this brush. Okay, we're going to pull in some depth here, and so I'm going to mix up some cobalt blue and some Payne's gray. Oh my gosh, that's so dark. Okay, I don't want it quite that dark. I'm going to add a little more water into this. A little more of the cobalt blue. We've used a relatively limited palette for this. I tend to like to do that. Most of my paintings are more limited palette. I know when I start to add too many things in, I start to kind of wish I hadn't. I like to keep things a bit more limited. Okay, this is really pretty, but I think we need a bit more blue for part of this. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Because back here it is green blue. There's also a lot of dark. And don't be afraid, like I backed it down because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's too dark. But the truth is that this is like the darkest part of the whole picture. So, and we need to have those really dark things to make everything else come alive. So I'm going to leave my brush really dark. I mean, look at how dark that is. It's like a blue, gray, green. And I've used sap green, Payne's gray, and cobalt blue. I'm going to add a little more cobalt blue into there in order to develop that color. Oh yeah, I'm really happy with that. Okay, so this is going to come along the shore. And you can see there's like, it comes here and here. And I'm just going to let it run here. And you can see it kind of gets a little softer in some parts, or you can see like, not softer, but there's like bits of, like it gets a little more grayed out, I should say. But then there's like some lighter areas. So I'm dancing my brush around. Okay, and then it comes here, and it kind of comes out here. Like it's a little bit like there. Oh, there, that's it. It comes out into the water right here. It kind of dances out. All right, now this gets a bit more blue-gray. So I'm going to add a bit of blue in here. I'm going to work kind of quickly here and I'm going to add a bit more water. And there's a bit of a line here. So I'm going to keep that line in there. And now I'm going to come up with more blue and Payne's gray to make this a nice blue-gray for this back hill, which does have a little green still in it. There we go. It's just not quite as dark, but it is really dark still. Gotta not get caught up in like, oh, I don't want to make it too dark, because that does happen, and then it's not dark enough. Okay, there we go. And we've got this hill in the background it kind of comes up like this. I'm going to smooth that out a little. All right. I think I'm going to leave that alone. It's really nice and deep. We've got green to blue. I might touch up in there a little bit later, but right now I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, so now this area is more, it's a little more washed out. So I'm going to pull my paint forward here, and I might add just a touch more of that Payne's gray, because it is just a bit more washed out here. And then we're going to come in and do the same thing here. Right, and it kind of comes, and you can kind of see where like there's a bit of like, we've got kind of these swells of land that are coming in and creating these like little, not really highlights, but kind of, right? And so we're gonna go in here, and now as I get to the top, let's take it a little bit more to that green. Got too much water in my brush, and I can just tell as I'm kind of by feel, but also by sight, as I'm mixing around here, I could see I had a little too much water in my brush. So I'm going to pull some of that water out, and now let's come back in here and just kind of like, there we go. Okay, I'm going to let that, and then this is a little bit more green, so I'm going to grab a little more green. It's a little more intense. I'm going to make sure I get some of that Payne's gray in there, and I'm going to mix it forward until I get the right, it still has a little blue in it. So I'm just kind of playing with my mixture until I get it just right. Okay, there it is. It's like green, but it's got blue and gray in it. And that's this right here. This kind of comes like this. And I'm not going to, there's a bit of separation here. And now I'm going to get a little bit more gray and a little softer to pull it out the rest of the way. It's going to kind of join up here. I'm pulling it this way just a tiny bit. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And you know what? I'm going to join this together a little bit here. I like that little line, but I don't want it to be a thing. And this is kind of gotten a little messy, but that's okay. Yeah, it's not exactly like the photo, but this isn't a photo, it's a piece of art. It doesn't have to be exactly like the photo. All right, oh gosh, look at that. We can really see all of these layers and all that dimension. I'm super happy with that. I'm going to come back into this side here, and I'm going to work just a little bit of green, but I'm going to put a bit more gray in it. And it's gonna go right here because there's kind of a darker line that kind of swishes in here a bit that you can just kind of see. So I'm just gonna kind of work that up a bit this way. All right, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm happy with that. Now the other part that we've got a lot of value, or a lot of like deep values in, are these trees. So I'm gonna take the same color that I just used here, the same set of colors. I'm gonna gray it out with a bit of that Payne's gray. And we're gonna use a combination of this kind of blue-green. And they're gonna be a little more blue in this side and a little more green on this side. So I'm gonna add a little more blue to my mixture for right now. And we're just gonna go in and we're just gonna kind of add some value on top of these. And I'm not gonna get every single, I'm just bouncing my brush around, right? See? And I'm just kind of, and I'm adding darker value to the the right side, as though I had a light source that was kind of coming this way. I don't really have a light source, but you can kind of see this is a little lighter over here. It just balances well. Like this is really dark because I think the sun is coming from this side of things, but very subtly because it's overcast. So as I'm darkening up these trees, I'm leaving my original green. It's just giving them some dimension, right? And I'm not looking at my reference photo at all. I'm just kind of going along here as I do this. And there we go. All right, now I'm going to add just a teeniest bit more of the sap green in here to make it a bit greener. And we're going to come in and we're going to develop some shadows. Like if you can imagine, we're trying to develop some tree shapes here, right? Because we've just got a lot of color. And so I'm adding some of that shadow to the bottom. And again, the kind of left side. And then we're going to kind of add some like, okay, this is all in shadow. And maybe it's even a little darker. So I'm going to add a little bit. Oop, that was too much. I make a lot of sound effects. I don't realize that until I'm doing this. I wonder if I make sound effects at work. I have to ask my coworkers because that might be kind of weird. Okay, I'm going to add just a little bit extra depth in some of these places. And I think they get pretty dark as they get to this corner. So I'm gonna make sure that all of this is pretty dark. Okay, ooh, I really like the way that looks. I think that is super nice. I think I want to add a bit more green right here. Just needs a bit of green. So I'm pulling from this lighter bit of green actually. Because we want to make sure this looks like we've got some trees that are kind of packed into each other here. So I'm going to just add a little bit of in the background. Okay, and this is where they kind of start to spread out. Right, and so we're going to establish. Now I'm going to add a bit more of my green. I'm still working in this blue-gray area so that we're kind of joining everything together. I'm going to pick up just a touch of Payne's gray and a teeniest bit of the cobalt blue, but it's a lot of green. And now we're going to come in and we're just going to kind of develop each of these trees. And these ones are there's a little, not a lot more definition, but a little bit. Like we can see some stems here. Because they're a little closer, and the closer things are, the more we can see, right? And we may go back in, and I want to keep things joined together, right? I don't want to separate these, so I'm going to kind of pull in color as I go. I'm pushing it up, but I'm kind of keeping that line, because remember, this painting is really all about that. It's all about these diagonal lines. Okay, I'm going to get a little more color, a little more green, a little more blue, a little less, a little more blue. Not too much gray. That's good. Okay, because this is closer and we can see more, right, of this tree and its shape. And we're just going to kind of bring down, like, okay, I'm imagining that's a stump. This is like, we've got some, there we go. And then we've got some things in the background. Okay. Ooh, I'm pretty happy with that. This tree is tilting weird. Do you see how like my stem, like everything's kind of like this? Boom, boom. This one is wrong. So I'm going to fix that by pulling it in this way. Now we may go in, these are really dark in the picture. I don't think I have them dark enough, so I'm going to go back in with a bit more Payne's gray and a bit more sap green. Ooh, this is really dark, but that's okay. And we're just going to kind of come in, right? Because this is going to fade, and then I'm going to be like, oh, I should have made those darker, because this is darker right here. This is definitely dark. Sometimes it feels really dark, doesn't it? Like all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, Stacy, you've made this so, I don't know, this is too much. Nope, it's going to fade out. It's not going to be too much. I don't think so anyway. I'm just dabbing this in, dabbing it in a lot more over here. Drawing this out. Okay, and then this is really dark right here. Okay, and the same is true for right here. Right here, this is dark. So we're gonna, and so is this, but not quite as dark. Okay, and I feel like what I need to do is I'm going to take this green that I've been working with. I feel like I need to pull a little bit more color into here. So I'm going to, I think I'm using my size 5. I've got some water in my brush, but not too much. And I'm just going to pull the same color and I'm just going to dance it over the, I'm going to kind of connect it. And if some of this floods, that's okay. And I'm going to add just a little, now I'm pulling from a bit warmer space. And I'm going to do that right here. That bit warmer space. Or space, I don't know, warmer color. This whole thing down here almost curves up like this. So I'm going to pull in some more of my sap green. And I'm just going to kind of pull that into here. So that there's not as, there we go. There, and same thing here. Like this is pretty dark. I'm gonna pull in like right here. Don't be afraid to get dark. And I've got a little bit more. It's just a little. There's just a little more depth to here than I have in my painting, and we want to make sure that we don't lose that. Like I think I've made these trees a little too distinct maybe, and so I'm looking in the picture and I just like this just doesn't feel quite right, so I'm going to go through and just kind of pull in and just like maybe make them a little less distinct. So I'm using my kind of mix of blue grays. Okay, I like that better. I think that's nicer. I'm happy with what's happening in here because it's farther away, but I just needed to do something here a little bit, I think. I'm just going to kind of, ooh, I want to bring this way. All right, ooh, okay, not touching it. I'm real happy with that. And sometimes that's it. Like right now, oof, I needed something more, but I don't want to mess it up. So I'm gonna leave it alone. And I'm gonna pull a little bit of darkness here. Okay, now I need to look back here. Ooh, that's so deep. Okay, not that dark. And I think I need to add a little bit of blue, gray, green right to here. I just don't like what this looks like. So I'm just going to kind of clean this up a bit. And it is really dark right at the edges. And this one is super dark. And the other one that's super dark is like this one. So I'm just going to add a bit more to like that. There we go. And I'm going to kind of pull that out a little. There, I'm a little happier with that. Okay, I think this painting is done. I'm gonna let it dry all the way. This is really underworked, as in we could definitely add more detail to here, but I don't want to. I think, okay, should I add some grasses? but I don't want to pull away from this. So we're going to leave that all out. But I felt like that in the beginning, and I still feel like that now. So let's let this dry all the way, and then we'll come back and look at it together. There is some like really pretty blues in the water, but I think going in and making that water darker is not going to add anything to the picture. And I think our first initial wash just keeps our contrast really high, and so we're not going to touch it. I am really glad that we started off with that pinker color and moved into the gray blue and then over into this more green blue, because I think that makes the water super interesting. I really, really like that we did that. And I love the way that these things are layering. So I'm pretty happy with all of this. I think that this is a success. Let's let it dry, and then we'll take it off of the pad so that we can see it all by itself, nice and pretty, and we'll sign and date. Okay, I actually decided I'm going to keep this on the board overnight. I really like this painting, and if I keep it on the board before I, like this block, then it's going to dry really, really flat. If I take it off now, then I may end up risking some warping. So I'm going to end the video here, but we are going to sign it. So I'm going to just write my name, or sign my name. Always sign your work, because you should be proud of what you're doing. Even if it's not your favorite piece, sign it anyway. And then I like to put 08/2025. And now I can look back at a painting again in the future, and I can compare it. This got a little dark. That's the beauty of signing in pencil with a kneaded eraser. So that if I want to, I can lighten it up. Oops. Okay, now I'm fuss budgeting. As you see, I fuss with everything. That's part of what makes watercolor so hard for me, is I have a hard time leaving stuff alone. Anyway, thanks for painting with me. I hope you enjoyed this landscape paint along. You can learn along with me. I'm still very much a student, but it's fun to be able to post these online and, you know, paint with somebody else, even if it is virtually. All right, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, hit subscribe below, and next week we're going to paint another landscape. I haven't picked the picture yet, but it'll be another fun one. All right, thank you.